I was standing at the altar, staring at the woman I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, while a room full of people smiled, waited, and believed this was the happiest day of my life. The music had just faded. The officiant was halfway through his speech. My fiancée, Emily, was holding my hands, looking up at me like I was her entire world. And for a second, I almost went through with it. Almost. Because standing there, with 150 guests watching us, I knew something they didn't. In less than 5 minutes, this entire wedding was about to collapse. I could feel my heart pounding, but not from nerves, not from excitement, from restraint. Emily squeezed my hands gently and whispered, "You okay?" I looked at her, really looked at her. Same smile, same eyes, same voice that used to calm me down on my worst days. And all I could think was, how long had she been lying to me? I swallowed, forced a small smile, and nodded. Yeah, I'm good. But I wasn't, not even close. Because behind me, just a few feet away, hidden in plain sight, was everything I needed to end this. And no one had a clue. Not Emily, not our families, not even the guy sitting in the third row who thought he was getting away with everything. Especially not him. I took a slow breath, looked around the room one more time, and then, actually, before we continue, I said, my voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. The officiant paused. Emily's grip tightened, and the room shifted. Confused murmurs, people leaning forward, my mom's face already starting to change. I glanced at Emily one last time, and for the first time that day, I saw it. Not love, not excitement, but fear. And that's when I knew she already suspected. Good. That meant this would hurt even more. My name is Daniel. And about 3 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I met Emily 2 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party. She walked in late, wearing this simple black dress, laughing like she didn't care who was watching, and somehow, everyone was. I wasn't even planning to stay long that night. I had work early the next day, and honestly, I wasn't in the mood for socializing. But then she sat next to me, and within 5 minutes, we were talking like we'd known each other for years. She was sharp, funny, the kind of person who made everything feel lighter. And me? I was hooked. We started dating a week later, and I'm not gonna lie, it felt perfect. Not in that fake, over-the-top way, but real, easy, comfortable. She met my family within a few months, and they loved her. My mom called her the one before I even had the courage to admit it to myself. My best friend Jake, he got along with her instantly. Too well, maybe, but back then, I didn't think anything of it. Jake had been in my life since college. We'd been through everything together, bad breakups, job struggles, late night talks about where life was heading. If there was one person I trusted blindly, it was him. So when the three of us started hanging out more, it just felt natural. Game nights, dinners, weekend trips, it felt like everything was falling into place. About a year into the relationship, I proposed. Nothing crazy, just a quiet evening, rooftop dinner, city lights in the background. She said yes before I even finished the question. And I remember thinking, this is it. This is what people mean when they say they're happy. The first crack didn't feel like a crack at all. It was small, almost nothing. Emily started taking her phone with her everywhere. Bathroom, kitchen, even when she went to grab something from the car. At first, I joked about it. What, you think I'm gonna steal your phone or something? She laughed it off. Just habit. And honestly, that made sense. Everyone's glued to their phones these days, so I ignored it. But then, it kept happening. Late night texts. Screen turned away from me. Little things. Nothing you could point at and say, that's it, that's the problem. But enough to make you feel off. One night, we were sitting on the couch watching a movie. She was leaning against me, scrolling through her phone. I glanced down casually, and the second she noticed, she locked the screen. Too fast. Like instinct. I didn't say anything, but something in my chest tightened. A few days later, Jake came over. Same as always. Drinks, laughs, stupid arguments about sports. At one point, I left the room to grab more snacks. When I came back, they went quiet. Not completely silent, just that awkward shift, like a conversation had ended a second too early. I looked at both of them. Jake smiled. What took you so long? Emily avoided eye contact. And again, nothing concrete, nothing I could call out. But it stuck with me. Over the next few weeks, that feeling grew. It wasn't paranoia. It was patterns. Emily started working late more often. Jake became weirdly unavailable whenever I asked him to hang out one-on-one. But somehow, whenever we were all together, everything seemed fine. Too fine. Like they were overcompensating. I started noticing how often they laughed at each other's jokes. How they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't paying attention. And the worst part? I kept telling myself I was overthinking it. Because the alternative, that the two people I trusted most were lying to me, I didn't want to believe that. Then came the night everything changed. It was a Thursday. Nothing special. Emily had fallen asleep early on the couch. Her phone was on the table, screen lighting up every few minutes. I wasn't planning to check it, I swear. I sat there for a while, just staring at the TV, trying to ignore that gut feeling. But then the phone buzzed again. And this time, I saw the name. Jake. My chest went cold. I told myself, don't do it. Don't be that guy. But my hand moved anyway. I picked up the phone, unlocked it. And what I saw in that moment, it didn't just confirm my fears. It shattered everything. Messages, dozens of them. Not just casual conversation. Not just flirting. Plans, details. Things they had done. Things they were planning to do. Behind my back. In my own house. While I was in the next room, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like the air had been ripped out of my lungs. My hands started shaking as I scrolled. Every message hitting harder than the last. Every word rewriting my entire reality. And then, one message. One line that made everything snap into place. Something so specific. So undeniable. That there was no room left for doubt. No room for denial. Just the truth. Raw, ugly, final. I slowly looked up from the phone at Emily. Still asleep, peaceful. Like she hadn't just destroyed my entire life. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't just betrayal. This was something deeper, something planned, calculated, and I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because if they thought I didn't know, then I had the advantage. I placed the phone back exactly where it was. Sat there in silence, heart still racing, mind already moving. Because one thing was clear. If I was going to end this, I wasn't going to do it quietly. And as I leaned back, staring into the dark room, one thought kept repeating in my head. If they wanted a wedding, I'd give them one they'd never forget. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a second. I just sat there in the dark, replaying everything I had seen on her phone over and over again. Every message, every detail, every lie I had believed without question. At some point, Emily shifted in her sleep, mumbling something softly, and instinctively, I looked at her. Same face, same person I had trusted with everything. And yet now, it felt like I was looking at a stranger. I remember thinking how long had this been going on right in front of me? Weeks? Months? Or worse? Since the beginning? That thought hit harder than anything else. Because if it had been going on for that long, then everything we built together, every memory, every promise, meant absolutely nothing to her. And somehow, that hurt more than the cheating itself. The next morning, I acted normal. That was the hardest part. Emily woke up, stretched, smiled at me like nothing had changed. Morning, she said, leaning in to kiss me. And I let her. That might sound crazy, but in that moment, I needed her to think everything was still under control. Because the second she suspected anything, she'd start covering her tracks. Deleting messages. Warning Jake. Changing the narrative. And I couldn't let that happen. Not yet. So I smiled back. Morning. We had breakfast together like we always did. She talked about wedding plans, guest confirmations, decorations, all the little details that used to make me excited. Now, it felt like listening to someone plan a performance. Because that's what it was. A performance. And I was done being the only one who didn't know the script. That day, after she left for work, I called in sick. Not because I couldn't function, but because I needed time. Time to think. Time to figure out exactly how deep this went and what I was going to do about it. I sat down with my laptop, staring at a blank screen for a few minutes, trying to calm the storm in my head. Confront her? End it immediately? Expose them privately? All of those options were there. All of them were reasonable, but none of them felt right, because none of them matched what they had done to me. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time slip. This was ongoing, planned, hidden, and worst of all, comfortable. They were comfortable lying to me, and that's when the idea started forming. Slowly at first, then sharper, clearer. If they were willing to play this game behind my back, then I wasn't going to end it quietly. I was going to let it play out, exactly the way they wanted, right up until the moment it blew up in their faces. The first step was evidence. I went back to her phone that night, carefully, slowly. This time, I took screenshots. Everything. Messages, timestamps, photos. There were even voice notes. Hearing them laugh together, talk about me like I wasn't even a person, that part almost broke me. I had to stop a few times just to breathe, but I kept going. Because the more I saw, the more I understood. This wasn't just about cheating. They had joked about the wedding, about how perfect it was, about how easy it would be to keep everything hidden. And then I found something worse. A message from Jake. After the wedding, it'll be easier. He'll never suspect anything. I froze. Read it again and again. After the wedding, they weren't planning to stop. They were planning to continue. While I stood there, legally tied to her, completely blind. That's when the last piece of hesitation disappeared. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a setup, and I was done being the victim in it. Over the next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. Calm, controlled, focused. On the outside, everything looked the same. I still went to work, still talked to Emily about wedding plans, still met up with Jake occasionally. And that part was the hardest. Sitting across from him, watching him laugh, joke, act like my brother, while knowing exactly what he was doing behind my back, there was one moment I'll never forget. We were at a bar, just the two of us. He raised his glass. To you, man, almost married life. I stared at him for a second, and then I raised mine too. Yeah, I said, almost. He had no idea what that word really meant. While they thought everything was fine, I was building something else. A plan. Not rushed, not emotional, precise. I started organizing all the evidence, dates, times, conversations. I needed it to be undeniable, not just something I could accuse them of, something I could prove. Then I started thinking about the wedding itself, the setup, the timing, the audience. Because if I was going to do this, it had to be perfect. It had to hit at the exact moment where there was no escape, no denial, no way to twist the story. And that's when I remembered something. The venue had a full AV system, projectors, screens, sound system. Originally, it was meant for a slideshow, photos of us, memories, our journey. Emily had been working on it for weeks. Smiling faces, vacations, moments that now felt fake. I told her I wanted to help finish it. She seemed surprised at first, but then smiled. Of course, that would be nice. She had no idea what I was actually doing. Late at night, while she slept, I worked on that presentation, but not the one she thought. I kept her version, saved it, then created another one, a real one. Every message, every screenshot, every piece of proof, organized like a story. Their story. I even included timestamps showing exactly when things happened, dates that overlapped with moments she told me she was busy or working late. The deeper I went, the colder I became, because at some point, the anger changed. It wasn't explosive anymore. It was focused, sharp, like I was preparing for something inevitable. About a week before the wedding, Emily started acting different. Not suspicious, not guilty, but affectionate. More than usual. More attention, more compliments, like she was trying to reinforce something. Maybe she felt it. Maybe on some level, she knew something was off. Or maybe she just wanted to make sure everything stayed under control. Either way, I played along. I smiled. I laughed. I held her hand like nothing had changed. And every time she looked at me with that same familiar expression, I wondered if any of it was real. 2 days before the wedding, Jake came over again. Same routine. Same fake normal. At one point, Emily left the room to take a call. Jake leaned back on the couch, relaxed. Crazy, huh? He said. You're really doing this. I looked at him. What do you mean? Marriage, man. Big step. I nodded slowly. Yeah, it is. He smirked slightly. You sure you're ready for it? That question hit differently now, but I didn't react. Instead, I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. Yeah, I said quietly. I'm ready. And for the first time, that wasn't a lie. The night before the wedding, everything was set. The files were ready. The system was tested. The timing was planned down to the second. All I had to do was wait. Emily fell asleep next to me, peaceful, calm. I lay there staring at the ceiling, not angry, not sad, just done. Because tomorrow, everything was going to change. Not just for her, not just for Jake, but for me too. And as I closed my eyes, one thought stayed with me. They thought they were walking into a wedding, but what they were really walking into was the end. The next morning, I woke up early, earlier than I needed to. The house was quiet. Still, for a moment, it felt like any other day. But then it hit me. This was it. No going back. No second thoughts. I got dressed slowly. Suit, tie, everything in place. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the person staring back. Not because I looked different, but because I felt different. Stronger, colder, clear. At the venue, everything was already in motion. Guests arriving, music playing, people laughing. Emily hadn't arrived yet. Jake was there. Of course he was. Standing near the front, talking to some guests, completely relaxed. I walked past him. He gave me a nod. Big day. I stopped for a second, looked at him. Yeah, I said, it really is. And then the ceremony began. Music filled the room. Everyone stood. And Emily walked in, white dress, perfect smile, looking exactly like the woman I thought I loved. She reached the altar, took my hands, looked into my eyes, and whispered, "I love you." I held her gaze. And for a brief second, everything went quiet. Because right there, in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about truth. And the truth was about to come out in front of everyone. I love you. Emily's voice was soft, steady, convincing. If I hadn't seen everything, I would have believed her. I looked into her eyes, searching for something, anything that felt real. But all I saw was the same expression she had perfected over the past few months. Carefully crafted, completely controlled, and now completely meaningless. I tightened my grip on her hands just slightly, not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough for her to feel. Her smile flickered for a second. Just a second. Then it came back. The officiant cleared his throat gently, smiling at both of us. "Shall we begin?" I nodded. Emily nodded too. And just like that, the ceremony started. The officiant spoke about love, commitment, trust. Every word felt like a joke. Guests were smiling, some wiping tears. My mom looked like she couldn't be happier. Jake was sitting in the third row, relaxed, comfortable, like he belonged there, like he hadn't been sneaking around behind my back for months. I caught his eye for a split second, and he smiled. That same familiar, easy smile, the one I used to trust. I looked away, because if I kept looking, I might have lost control. "Daniel," the officiant said, turning to me, "please repeat after me." This was it. The moment everything had been building toward. I took a slow breath, looked at Emily, then at the guests, then back at the officiant. And instead of repeating his words, I spoke my own. "Actually, before we continue, there's something I need to do." The room shifted instantly. Confusion spread like a ripple. The officiant blinked, caught off guard. Emily's fingers tightened around mine. "Daniel," she whispered. I didn't respond. Instead, I slowly turned and looked toward the back of the room. "Can you roll the presentation?" For a second, nothing happened. Then, the screen behind us flickered on. Guests leaned back, murmuring softly, "Oh, is this the slideshow?" How sweet. Emily let out a small breath, her shoulders relaxing slightly. She thought she knew what this was. She thought she was still in control. The first image appeared, a photo of us, smiling, happy, exactly what everyone expected. A few people chuckled softly. Emily smiled again, glancing at me like everything was back on track. Then the next slide came, and everything changed. A screenshot, a message, Jake's name at the top. The room went quiet, not gradually, instantly, like someone had cut the sound completely. Emily's body went stiff next to me. I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on the screen because I wanted everyone else to see it first, to understand it, before she had a chance to react. The next slide, another message. Then another. Conversations. Flirting, then more. Details clear, undeniable. A gasp came from somewhere in the crowd. Then another. Someone whispered, "What is this?" I could feel the tension building behind me. Emily's grip loosened. Her breathing changed. Faster now. Shallow. "Daniel," she said quietly, her voice shaking just slightly. "What are you doing?" I turned to her slowly, and for the first time that day, I saw it. Not confidence, not control, but panic. I looked back at the guests, at my family, at her family, at Jake. He wasn't smiling anymore. His face had gone pale, eyes locked on the screen, frozen. Good. Now he understood. "This," I said, my voice calm but carrying across the entire room, "is the real story." Another slide. More messages, dates, times, proof. Every lie laid out in front of everyone. I could hear people shifting in their seats, some standing up, some whispering, some just staring, trying to process what they were seeing. "Stop," Emily said suddenly, louder now. She stepped closer to me, her voice trembling. "Stop this right now." I looked at her. No, that one word hit harder than anything else, because she wasn't used to hearing it from me. "It's not what it looks like," she said quickly, turning toward the crowd, her voice rising, panic creeping in. "Everyone, please, this is a misunderstanding." Another slide cut her off. This time, a voice note. Her voice, clear, undeniable. Laughing, talking about me, talking about Jake, talking about everything they thought I'd never find out. The room erupted, gasps, shouts. Someone actually said, "Oh my God." Emily stumbled back a step, her hands shaking now, her eyes darting between the screen and the crowd. No, this isn't. She couldn't even finish the sentence, because there was no way out of it. Not anymore. I turned slightly and looked directly at Jake. "Anything you want to say?" Every head in the room turned toward him, all eyes on him now. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Nothing came out. Because what could he say? There was nothing left to hide. Emily's voice broke. "Daniel, please, we can talk about this. Not here, not like this." I let out a quiet breath and shook my head. "You already had your chance to talk." I stepped back slightly, giving space between us. "This isn't happening in private," I said. "Not after everything you did." Another slide appeared. The final one? A message. Jake again. "After the wedding, it'll be easier. He'll never suspect anything." I didn't need to say anything after that. The silence said everything. Emily collapsed into a chair nearby, covering her face. Not out of shame, but because she had nothing left. No control, no narrative, no escape. The officiant stood there, completely stunned. The guests were in chaos now. Some people were leaving, some were arguing. Her parents looked like they couldn't even process what was happening. My mom, she just sat there, quiet, watching me, and when our eyes met, she nodded. Just once. That was enough. I looked back at Emily one last time. "This wasn't a mistake," I said quietly. "This was a choice. Every single time." She didn't respond. She couldn't. Then I turned, walked past the altar, past the guests, past Jake, who still couldn't even look at me. And I didn't stop. Not until I was outside. The air hit different out there. Cool, real. For the first time in weeks, I could actually breathe. The fallout was immediate. Messages, calls, people asking questions. I ignored most of it. I didn't need explanations. I already had the truth. A few days later, I heard what happened. Emily moved out. Left town, actually. Jake lost more than just a friend. Turns out, a lot of people didn't take his side. Funny how that works. As for me, I didn't feel victorious. Not the way people think. There was no celebration. No satisfaction like in the movies. Just clarity. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about hurting the other person. It's about finally seeing them for who they really are. And choosing yourself. If I had confronted her privately, maybe things would have been quieter, cleaner, but it wouldn't have been honest. Not after what they did. And standing there, at that altar, I didn't just end a relationship. I ended a lie. And that was enough.